Good morning to you once again. I hope you're having a great Tuesday morning wherever it is you're listening to me from. Today is Tuesday, the 6th day in July 2021. I hope you're well, physically, spiritually, mentally, and financially. Let's not forget financially. I know that you can be well in every way, and just because you're not well financially can really do it. Really does. It's like having a weak low on your finger. Just that little bump on your finger can affect the whole body. So it's important to be well in every area, and I really do hope that you are well. Welcome to another time with me. I'm your host, Ronke Giwa Onafuwa, and it is time for Straight from Beyond the Surface. I beg your pardon. It's Beyond the Surface, and on Beyond the Surface, we usually just tackle topics and issues and discussions and conversations, that will definitely give you more understanding about, a certain topic. We dig beyond the surface and dig a little deeper to give you perhaps more knowledge about something you already know. And today, I believe it was last week I talked about the resumption of voter registration, and I encourage everybody, and I still encourage everyone, to get out there and please go and get your voter's card. The exercise is ongoing, and I believe that INEC is doing their best as well to ensure that as many people as possible, get it easily and smoothly. So do take time off work if you need to, and go and get your voters registration. And moving further from that conversation, we're going to be talking about women and what we can do to encourage more women to run in elections. There's so many issues, cultural issues, financial issues, that inhibit women from running in elections, or even women going out to vote. Oftentimes during elections, it's usually a lot of time the men that we see going out to vote, while the women still stay home and have to do certain things. So we have to continue to have this conversation, because voting is not a thing we do. It's not a manly thing. Voting is a human thing. It's a Nigerian thing. So if you're a Nigerian, your vote is your right. So, and when you stop yourself, when from the time of getting a PVC, you have already taken yourself out of the race. There's nothing else you can do when it's during the election. So now that, you're being asked to get your voter's card, please do so. So that when it's time for elections, you can vote as well. Voting is not just a thing that men do. Voting is a thing that we all do. As long as you are 18 and over, then you can definitely vote. So please pick up your voter's card. All right, so today I'm going to having a conversation with an amazing lady. Her name is Abosede George Ogan. She's founder of Elect Her. Elect Her is a non-partisan progressive women's political advancement organization bridging inequality gaps in African democracy by advocating for and enabling women's leadership across appointive and elective office. Their mission is fulfilled through behavioral change communications, skills development, human capital mobilization, and campaign financing, with an end goal to enable capable women competitively decide, run, and win elections. They're on a mission to empower 1,000 women to run for office and directly back 35 women by 2023. They have a huge task ahead of them, and I'm really excited to talk to Bosidi, who's one of the co-founders of Elect Her, and talk about their mission and how well they're doing, how successful their mission has been. So it's really exciting to have her on the show today. Good morning, Abosede. I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for agreeing to talk to me. It's really good to have you here, and I must say I'm a fan of your work and on all that you're doing. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's good to be here.
All right. Oftentimes when we're talking to, especially, we're in Ibadan. We're a private radio station here in Ibadan. Oftentimes when we start to talk about things that have to do with women only, oftentimes a lot of people check out, not just even men, women. How do you stop this from happening to you with Elect Her, where you're talking about, okay, just the female gender, and people, how they say, some people have left the chart. How do you stop this from happening, or do you even care that this happens?
Well, I think the first place to start is that every society is oftentimes made up of men, women, and yes, people living sometimes with disabilities or special needs.
Yes.
So recognizing that we don't only have a particular gender within society is very, very important. So I think that people do that because we have been conditioned for a very long time to see things a certain way. And as you know, the older you are, the harder it is to change your ways. But I think it's important to always bring people back, to the importance. So there is no one leaving today. At least science hasn't caught up, right? So there's no one leaving today who wasn't born by a woman, right? So starting with the basic fundamental things that they can relate to and that they understand is actually where you kick off the conversation from. And so before we delve into the complex nature of what politics is, whether women should be participating for those who still don't believe, you just start with the fundamentals. You have a mother, you have aunties, you have sisters, right? And how do you see them? How do you see them experience life? Do they experience life the same way you do if you're a male, right? Or if you're a woman in the urban area versus the rural area. So I think that's where we start to have the conversation and start to make people see why this is a really important conversation to have.
Phenomenal. Thank you very much. And I guess I will ask you, how did the story of Elect Her start? I know you co-founded this with Ibijoke. Please tell us the story of how this started. I know I'm not going to ask why did you start, because we know we know how insignificant a number of women who are running in elections, even voting in elections, who care about elections. So we know that this is important. But what was the story? What's the story behind Elect Her?
So the story is that in 2019, at least leading up to 2019, we had some, so Ibijoke and her little corner and myself and my little corner through our nonprofit had done some work on giving women visibility, helping them out with their communication and things like that. And we were really hopeful that 2019 will be that year where we kind of leave the 6.7% women's representation that we were dancing around. And then the elections happened, and we went from 6.7% to 4.7%. And we were devastated. So you can say that the electoral story was born out of the need that we must do something differently ahead of 2023 so that we can truly move the needle. And really, that's the work that we continue to do.
Right, absolutely. And your mission is to address the significant representation of Nigerian women in politics by engaging, encouraging, equipping, and enabling women to decide. I mean, it's interesting that you said significant representation. It's more like an insignificant, it really does feel very insignificant.
So it's the underrepresentation of women.
Yes.
Underrepresentation of women.
Absolutely. And what are some of these issues? Let's talk about some of these issues that really do inhibit women, from running in elections in Nigeria.
So, I mean, to be honest, I'm sure that if you ask the average person, they know. So some of the issues are religious and cultural stereotypes, right? This idea that women do not belong in politics. This idea that politics is not a place where women play. It's not a terrain where women should be, right? So those are limiting beliefs that are placed on women, but that women also have been culturally accustomed to believe, right? So there is that. The other challenge is really the political party system, right? So what is the process that actually leads to the emergence of a candidate? Is that a fair process? Is it an inclusive process? Is it a process that gives the woman and the man level playing fields to show that they are competent and ready to lead, right? Is it a fair process? So, I mean, we can answer that question. Then we are still playing money politics in this country. We're currently looking at the electoral bill. We're saying that there will be a cap in spend, but I don't know if you have seen the bill.
Yes, I have.
Where to run for president, you need to have 5 billion naira. Where, what has the woman done in her lifetime to be able to accumulate that wealth? And even if a few have, how many, right? So limited financial capacity is a real challenge.
Absolutely.
I mean, not so much sort of competence and the knowledge, right? We have competent women all over Nigeria. However, there's some critical skill areas that we have also identified as gaps. So how many women have built their brand profile to a level that if I was to find you, I could find you, I could find your track record, and I could use that to reference why you are qualified and competent to do this role,
Right.
right?
Right.
How many women understand the power of negotiation and sitting at the table and negotiating for what you deserve and what should be yours?
Right.
So there's some critical skill areas as well that we have identified as gaps that are critical in politics
Right.
that we're also hoping to use the Electoral Academy to
Right.
close. So
Right.
our 4E strategy around engage, encourage, equip, and enable is really to address the gaps that we identified ahead of designing Elector. So the way that Elector was designed was actually to address these gaps that we identified, which I just mentioned.
Wow, phenomenal. Well done. Thank you so much. And what are specifically, you mentioned some of your programs. So apart from educating women and educating people generally, the populace, about why women need to have a voice and need to be represented, what are some of the things that you actively do? Do you also finance perhaps women who are qualified and choose to run but perhaps may not have, the finances? What are some of the things that you do specifically?
So in March 1st specifically, we launched Agenda 35.
Okay.
So Agenda 35 is made up of 3 parts. I don't know if you know this, but the Nigerian National Gender Policy, which was actually adopted in 2006, makes provision for 35% representation of women in elective and appointed office. But your guess is as good as mine. It has never been implemented because it is not legislated, and so no one is held accountable. So one of the things that we are pushing for is actually a legislated gender quota.
Right.
Because around the world, evidence shows that is one of the most important ways and pathways that women get elected. So if you see any country where women's political representation is high, they have used quotas because you have to be intentional because society has been designed not to actually give room to women. It's just the way that society has been designed.
Right.
So with Agenda 35, we're pushing for a legislated gender quota. We're also going to identify 35 women who we can support directly across the different offices, so legislature, executive office, but also we're hoping that 1,000 women will be empowered through our different programs. But then we would identify, specify who we will directly support. And I think the final piece of that is something that is already beginning to see with the continuous voter registration, which is people are coming out to register to vote. Now, the question is, we let people know that you should vote women. So that is the last piece of Agenda 35,
Right.
encouraging people to vote women as viable candidates that can lead and can represent.
It's a woman.
I think that is a flawed argument, and numbers don't lie.
Right.
If we have had over 90% of the people who have been in positions of power and leadership in this country have been men, right?
Yes.
So the question is, when people say, what have women done? They haven't done well. For every woman who has not done well, there are, you can only guess, maybe
Absolutely.
50 or 100 men who have not done well.
Right.
But people don't say that, which brings us back to the media and the role that people play in shaping the narrative and setting the agenda for how people perceive women as viable candidates, right?
Yes.
People sometimes are just speaking, out of, not from an informed place, is what I'm trying to say. So I think that there is an opportunity when people make comments like that for them to be educated about really what is going on. So, to be honest, there is no core argument because the question is, what standards are you holding women to? The Constitution makes provision for what you need to run for each office. If you want to run for president, you have to have been a graduate. You have to have a certificate. The conditions are the same for female.
Right.
So why are we holding women to extra levels of conditioning because they're women? I think those are the questions that we really need to ask ourselves and really need to start to think about. So I think that it's only fair that when people raise these issues, we use it as an opportunity to engage them. Because remember that the leadership that we have all known is male.
Exactly.
So it's a conditioning. So another thing the evidence shows is that the more women take positions of power, the more that women will actually get into positions of power. because then people see women lead and it becomes normalized.
Absolutely.
And it's okay.
Absolutely. All right. For those who are just joining us, I am speaking to Abosede George Ogan, who's co-founder Elect Her. And Elect Her is a non-partisan progressive women's political advancement organization bridging inequality gaps in African democracy by advocating for and enabling women's leadership across appointive and elective office. And their mission is fulfilled through behavioral change, communication, skill development, human capital mobilization, and campaign financing. I wanted to ask you, Abosede, obviously, if a woman shows an interest in politics, what is the step that you get through from, oh, I'm interested, to actually getting to the point where she's out there, people know her? Because that's also one of the things that we have issues with. People knowing their candidates, people knowing who's there, who can do it. So what is the process that you sort of engage from a woman who's interested to getting her out there?
Yeah. So I think that maybe 2 years ago in this country, if you were looking to run for office as a woman and you were interested, the same way that we have WIMBY for women who are in business and we have WISCA for women who are in careers, that did not exist. But today, Electa has launched the Decide to Run community.
Right.
It is a national recruitment platform that if you were someone who was aspiring to run, maybe not now, but in the future, many years from now, are now part of a community that is non-judgmental. It's a safe space because everyone in that community has the same ambition, right? Because that's always one challenge. A question I ask people a lot is, oh, Ronke, if your sister tells you she wants to run,
yes,
what will you say? And so we need to check ourselves because sometimes we are that voice, right? Male or female.
Right.
So this Decide to Run community is a safe space. And what we're doing is we have tailored bespoke programs for the Decide to Run community where we're equipping them from now.
Right.
So what is the knowledge you need to have?
Right.
What are the things you need to be doing, right?
Yes.
So they are aware and exposed to that information so that they can start building very early on before it is time for them to run.
Absolutely. Phenomenal. You have an initiative called Obiri as well. Please tell us a little bit about that. I know it has to do with art, but how do you use art? I mean, how do you bring art and, politics together with the Obiri initiative?
Yeah, so one of the things that was very important, as you said, was behavioral change communication, because one of the things that we saw, and I think that the continuous voter registration is showing that, if you look at how many people registered in 24 hours, the question you'd ask yourself is, so those people were not registered before? And so the question is really, there's a lot of apathy, political apathy, amongst Nigerians and particularly amongst young people, right? And so in doing the work that we do at Electa, we're very conscious about the fact that we need to find different mediums to reach out to different people. So art is one of those things that have a very niche group of people who actually, take interest in things through art.
Right.
It's important for us during International Women's Day to commission this art exhibition from the National Endowment for Democracy. And it was, titled Obiri, and we were trying to say, let's see what women's leadership looks like, right? And if you had a chance to see what these artists came up with, it was truly, truly phenomenal. And I am almost certain that we have brought some people from, one side to the other side using that.
Phenomenal. Well done. I also wanted to talk about the argument that people make about how there are certain, in quote, OGs in politics. So in order to sort of get them out and get more people who we'd like to see represented, like even the youths and women, we have to work with these people. I don't know, what work are you doing with, for example, even the popular parties like the APC and PDP? What work are you doing with them? Because I don't know if you've had the feeling that, it really does feel like if you don't work with them, it will be hard to get a foot in. Do you have those challenges, and how do you surmount those?
So as you know, we're non-partisan.
Right.
We will support women regardless of what party they are a part of.
Okay.
However, Nigeria only provides for people to run through parties. There is no independent candidacy in our constitution.
Yes.
So it is important for women to understand the strategy of choosing a party. I think that's why Electa exists.
Right.
Electa exists to make people understand what is the best strategy for you? What is the best in your constituency? So we look at it from a strategic part, from the candidacy side.
Right.
However, in our stakeholder grouping, the political parties are critical stakeholders, right? And so the question is, how do we engage with the political parties to have a more inclusive process to ensure that they understand the women are viable candidates, and women are not just the ones who give free forms to, but they can be viable candidates, they can win elections, and they can be good politicians.
Absolutely.
I think that that's the way to engage in this conversation.
Right.
And so it's not necessarily about the status quo of OGs. Some people will be non-traditional candidates, but the truth is that there's also a different pathway for you if that's your situation. So it's understanding the strategy as candidates and engaging the parties to be more inclusive.
All right. Wow. Thank you so much, Abosade John Ogan, for being here. And I know you have a challenge on social media where it's hashtag I pledge to challenge her. Can you tell us a bit more about this, and how can people to elect her? I beg your pardon.
Yes.
So how can people participate in this challenge, and what really is the end goal for this?
So we have 18 months to the election.
Yes.
It is important for us to start to create the consciousness, as I mentioned earlier, that you can vote a woman when you go to the ballot. So the first thing is people need to register to vote. I mean, that is the first thing, right? Because if you are not registered, then you cannot vote. And we need people to come out and vote, right? That idea that, oh, my vote doesn't matter. I'm glad that we're all leaving that behind, because if your vote didn't matter, nobody will care so much, but your vote does matter, and it is powerful, right? So we're asking people from now to pledge to elect her, which means that you will go to the ballot. Of course, you will hear your candidate, and you can make that choice that this woman is a better candidate, that will be a better representative of my needs, right? Yes. And so, therefore, I will vote her. So follow us on social media. We're at elector_NG, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn as well as Elector. Our website is www.elector.org.
Right.
And so you...
So sorry, some of the platforms you've talked about now, I mean, brings to fore the question about how are you reaching the grassroots, for example, because people often say, oh, LinkedIn, Twitter, people are not the people that really vote. How are you taking Elect Her to the grassroots, to the people in Bere, to the people in Afigio and all of those places, the people that they say really vote?
That's a great question. One of the things that we observed also before starting Elect Her is that there is a strong women's movement in this country. Yes, it might not have achieved what it wants to achieve, but it is a strong women's movement. There are organizations that have been around almost since independence, some since democracy started in this country. There is no point in reinventing the wheel. So we work with some of these groups. There are a lot of them who have grassroots community representation, and so we leverage these organizations to get to these people. Because there is no need building a parallel structure, and so that's another thing that we're very big on. We're very big on partnership and collaboration, because we spend time to understand the system, and so there's so many of these women groups who have been so gracious, to allow us to leverage their platforms to reach the grassroots.
Wow, phenomenal. Thank you very much once again. I've been speaking to Abosade George Ogan, co-founder, Elector. I really appreciate you being here. And please go to their website, get to know more about what they're doing. The work they're doing is phenomenal, because this is a big push that we need. It's not just even men need to believe in women. Even some women need to believe in women. I remember when the lady Sarah Jibril running an election, and where even women were saying, oh, a woman as president, heck no, so it's not just a mindset change for men, but mindset change for all of us, really.
For all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you
your
so much
time
for
here.
having me, Ronke.
I appreciate you being here.
My
Thank you,
pleasure.
and have a wonderful day.
All right, then.
All right, well, thank you for listening and for being a part of the program. I hope that conversation has sort of inspired you to elect her. Think of women. When you see women running, know that they are running up against a lot. And so your support is very, very important. You can follow their platform and see, because obviously from what she said, they also ensure that it's not just about voting her, but voting quality women, qualified women, and there's loads of qualified women all around us who we can encourage even to run in elections, because we definitely need more women represented everywhere, so that our children can also aspire to do better and to do more. And so that when they are making laws, if we don't have women there when they are making laws, that's how they will make laws that will say, oh, you should not even menstruate, because they don't know what that even means. If you know what I mean, I'm just saying that. But if you have more women there when they're making laws about women, a woman can say, oh no, this is how it is, because men have no idea what it is to be a woman. But if a woman is represented when they're speaking in corridors of power, then they can also have your interest at heart. So please elect her. That's it on today's edition of Beyond the Surface. Thank you very much for joining us. And a big thank you once again to our boss today, George Ogan. And of course to everyone who's participated on the program today. You can go on to our Facebook page if you have comments. I definitely will be reading right after this. My name is Ronke Giwa Onafuwa. Good morning.
Splash FM 105.5.
From the top of the Fisher Building.
This is
Number one hit music station.
Splash 105.5 FM, your integrity station.
Because this is just a radio ad, you can't get a taste of this delicious hot chocolate. You can't savor the irresistible aroma stemming from this mix of Cadbury chocolate, milk, and sugar. You can't even feel the warmth that comes with every sip. But do you know what you can do? You can make yourself a mug of Cadbury hot chocolate right now and feel the goodness in every sip. Cadbury 3-in-1 hot chocolate. Enjoy the Cadbury goodness.
Hip Hip Hooray! It's the 14th Splash 105.5 FM Anniversary Public Lecture and the 82nd birthday of the founding chairman. Splash 105.5 FM, the Integrity Station, Chief Adebayo Akonde, MFR, the Abese Olubadan of Ibadan land. Holding on the 7th of July 2021 at the Trenchard Hall, University of Ibadan. Time 11 a.m. prompt. Guest lecturer is Professor Olutayo C. Adeshino, FNAL, Head Department of History, University of Ibadan. Lecture topic: In Search of a Nigerian Dream. Chairman of the occasion, Chief Kola Karim Agbaoye of Ibadan land. Let's celebrate 14 years of excellence. Splash FM, your integrity station.
Try Ariel. Now your clothes will be cleaner than they've ever been. Ariel is worth it. Well, Ariel is worth it. One wash removes 99.9% germs and eliminates tough stains. Well, Ariel is worth it. Oh, yeah, protect your clothes and your family too. You know how much that's worth to you. Yeah. Ariel is worth it. Well, Ariel.
gbogbo ilé yìí pàápàá.
ọ̀rẹ́ kí ló ṣe ọ́ tó ń fapá jánu.
koríko ló kún oko pákí àtàgbàdo mi yìí bí mo ṣe ń tu koríko kan bí ìgbà tí méjì tún fò padà ni.
ìyẹn kì í ṣèṣòro rárá. làgọ́n máa yanjú wọn.
làgọ́n bíi ti bó.
làgọ́n jẹ́ oògùn apakoríko nínú oko pákí àti àgbàdo ó sì máa ń yọ àgbẹ̀ nínú wàhálà àti máa roko nígbà gbogbo. fọ́n làgọ́n sí oko rẹ ní kété tàbí lẹ́yìn ọjọ́ kan tí o bá ti gbin pákí àtàgbàdo rẹ kí o wá jẹ gbádùn bí bọ́ lọ́wọ́ koríko. owó tí à ń ta làgọ́n ò fani lápòyá o kò sì ní atrazine nínú ó sì rọrùn láti lò pẹ̀lú ìdáàbòbò tó péye. Bayer Middle Africa Limited ló ń pín tó sì ń ta làgọ́n jákèjádò Nàìjíríà. Bayer ìmọ̀ sáyẹ́ǹsì fún ọjọ́ ọ̀la tó dára.
Different days, different roads. All na to hammer, keep going, and spice up your hustle.
Introducing the new Gala Spicy. It's big, meaty, tasty, with that special Niger spicy flavor. Try it today. Available for 100 Naira only. Gala Spicy. Spice up your hustle.
Love learning. You can love learning. Anywhere, anytime. You can start learning when you decide. Get the best tutors to help your kids and brighten the future. Your lesson is the solution for easy learning, no complication. To love learning every day. Download, subscribe, and learn better with your lesson. No, you love learning. No, study for why I can echo Jambody go with your lesson. No, you love learning. No. Living better, crazy is easy when you go it. You listen, oh.
Download and subscribe on the Google Play Store and Apple App Store.
Àti kékeré lọmọ mi ti ní ìran láti di ìlú mọ̀ká. Ojúṣe mi sì ni láti ràn lọ́wọ́ kí ìran rẹ̀ wá sí ìmúṣẹ. Ìdí nìyí tí ó di àjẹsára rẹ̀ gbọ́dọ̀ dúró digbí kó lè gbé àwọn ìgbésẹ̀ títí tẹ́sẹ̀ rẹ̀ yóò fi múlẹ̀.
Ìràwọ̀ òṣèré wa tó kàn ní oníjó ballerino.
Mo ń fún ọmọ mi ní Vita lójoojúmọ́ tó ní iron, zinc àti vitamin C tó sì ń ran odi àjẹsára rẹ̀ lọ́wọ́ tó tún fún un ní okun láti mú kí ìran rẹ̀ wá sí ìmúṣẹ. Bone Vita, okun láti ní ìran.
Iná mọ̀nàmọ́ná a máa fúnni ní ìmọ́lẹ̀ a sì máa mú ìdẹ̀rùn wá láti wá dènà ìjàmbá iná mọ̀nàmọ́ná. Ojúlówó wáyà tàbí kébù ló yẹ ká fi fa iná nínú ilé, lọ́fíìsì àti nínú ìlú. Pure wires and cables ní àwọn ilé-iṣẹ́ mọ̀nàmọ́ná àti àwọn agbaṣẹ́ṣe yàn láàyò. Ojúlówó ni, kì í bó lára, kò kì í jóná àbàdì, kì í kán sínú, ó sì fi ni lọ́kàn balẹ̀. Ìdí nìyí tí Standard Organization of Nigeria fi fòǹtẹ̀tẹ̀ tí Nigeria Electrical Contractors náà fi dìbò fún. Bí copper cable ṣe wà ní aluminium cable ń bẹ nípele lówó tí kò gún pa. Pure wires and cables tó jẹ́ ọ̀kan lára àwọn ọmọ ẹgbẹ́ Kaman ló ṣe ojúlówó wires and cable jáde. Olú iléeṣẹ́ Pure Wires and Cables Limited wà ní Afrin's Compound, Fort Gate, number 122/132, Oṣòdì Apapa Expressway, Ìyànà Ìsọlọ̀ bus stop, Lagos. Ẹ̀rọ ìbánisọ̀rọ̀ wọn ní 080-803-03257. Pure Wires and Cables. Ìrọ̀rùn fi iná mọ̀nàmọ́ná.
You can rest assured we will take this jolly ride with you. I'll bet it's on you, 'cause you are a winner. We'll win with you. We'll run with you all the way. We'll share your dreams and we'll turn them to we're invested in your tomorrow.
ARM, invested in your tomorrow.
Splash FM 105.5.
Welcome back. It is still Beyond the Surface on Splash 105.5 FM. When you hear that you have some more time, it's always a great development. So I definitely will be looking forward to hearing back from you. If you listen to my conversation with my guest today, I had on earlier Abosede George Ogan, who is co-founder Electa. Electa is a non-partisan progressive women's political advancement organization bridging inequality gaps in African democracy by advocating for and enabling women's leadership across appointive and elective office. All right, before I open phone lines, I want to do a special birthday shout out to Elder Emmanuel Omori, who turns 65 today. Happy birthday to you, sir, and wishing you long life and prosperity. This is coming from your daughter-in-law, Chinwe Churchill, from here at Splash 105.5 FM. So wishing you a happy 65th birthday, Elder Emmanuel Omori. And of course, for anyone who knows him, please send him some love today to make him appreciated. 65 is definitely a huge age, you know, and of course, to aspire to get to there. Everyone aspires to get older. And may we all get to there and even beyond. And may, of course, God give you long life and prosperity. So I was talking to Abosede George Ogan earlier today, and she was talking about their work in ensuring that women are visible, you know, as representatives, lawmakers, you know, governors all over the place. And we also know that there's actually a big underrepresentation, if I can say that, of women in politics, you know. So if you're out there, even in everywhere, to be honest, you know, oftentimes we make a joke here about how even in the mornings when we're talking about political issues, we rarely find women who want to, you know, engage. We rarely find women who want to contribute. Is it that women don't want to contribute to your political matters? Is it that women don't want to run in elections, or the fact that there are so many factors inhibiting them from actually contesting, from actually calling in? I mean, oftentimes when you see on the school run, if you ever do school runs, you probably find there are more women in Ibadan even though I guess someone needs to do that research. Would you agree, ladies, that there are more women who do school run in the morning than men? Although I see a lot of fathers who do school run. I see a lot of fathers who do school run. But there are more, I do see a lot more women who do school run than men. So you tend to at least understand why a lot of the women may only listen to the radio shows in the morning, but may not be able to call because they are busy. Wake up earlier than everybody else. Make sure there's food that's going to be in the lunch pack. Make sure, that the children get dressed, take their bath. So the list of their worries, I guess, for a lot of women is to contribute and pick up their phone to calling. That's probably why we have a lot more men who contribute, in the mornings or to shows generally on radio than women. Not because women don't know what's happening in the country, not because women don't care what's happening in the country, but because a lot of women are boggled, like I say that, or bogged with so much responsibility. Not that the men don't have to be responsible, but I feel that especially in our culture, when we bring it to the issue of, running in elections, for example, how many of you would vote, for a woman who is qualified? We're not talking about, please, we're not having a conversation about just voting for a woman just because she's a woman. We have gone past there because we know that there are many women who are qualified. Just like how we have this conversation about zoning. And people say, you have to pick somebody from, the southwest, southeast. And other people will say there's nothing wrong with zoning because you can find an intelligent person with leadership qualification in every tribe and in every part of Nigeria. So zoning should not be a problem. It's just in being, doing due diligence to go to, maybe where are you from, Toby? Toby is from Ondo, Ekiti, yes. And Damilola is from Kogi. Oh, okay. So there are two women in the studio with me, if you're watching live, who are from different parts, of the country. So I'm sure there are very intelligent, very great people in Kogi who can be president. There are people in, Ekiti who can be president as well. So, but I can imagine that if you constantly surround yourself with, in quote, your people, and the same goes with men as well in politics, and looking at a woman like she's an unidentified flying object. When you see her in places where, in political spaces, it's odd because we don't usually see women in political spaces. And this is why, the reason why is also because oftentimes when men have their meetings or when they have some of these, political meetings, it's often had at a time when a woman should be home putting her kids to bed. So is it the woman who wants to put her kid to bed that'll be out at a constitution meeting or whatever meeting at 11 p.m.? So that those are the things that we need to also take out from the processes and because yes, a woman should be allowed to be as many things as she wants. She should be allowed to be a homemaker as well as a president, allowed to be anything she wants. But when you put factors in her place that stops her from running at the same pace as men, you may not be saying don't run, but it's like saying you can go out, but then I lock the door and put something in front of you. So we must begin to remove those things. That's what basically my guest was saying. Also, she referenced a recent bill that may be passed, which was talking about, how expensive our elections are. So to run for president, for example, where does a woman, most women that you see, when you look at even world's most successful or richest people, how many women do you find on those lists? Very few women that you find on those lists. So on that kind of list. So where does a woman want to get 5 billion to contest for president? What does a woman even want to get, millions from? And that's why we applaud organizations like Elect Her, because then they're putting their money where their mouth is. So when they find a woman who's qualified, but whose only challenge is that maybe she is not financially buoyant enough to run, then they back her. I guess, they do all that they need to. Thank you very much. You got this message earlier about you could not hear Plateau and the host. Oh, wow. Thank you very much. All right. So those are the issues also that women face. So it's not that women don't want to do certain things, but it's that we have put so many stumbling blocks in their way that it makes it hard for them to do those things. Women want to call in the morning and also engage in, matters that concern Nigeria. But if I have to do this, this, and this, and this in my home, you've made it hard for me to do. So what is the way forward? Not that women don't want to run in elections, but if you've made it that it's only night time, where when she goes to those night events, you are the same person that will call her I don't want to say it exactly. That A word. You're the same person that will call her that A word because what's she doing in the nighttime with majority of men? We need to normalize having, meetings at appropriate hours, perhaps. We need to normalize elections not being so expensive. We need to normalize, perhaps, husbands being more supportive and allowing your wives to, to run in elections. We need to normalize, especially when they have children who are even grown, allow women without calling them all sorts of names. Those are the things we need to start to normalize, or else we're still going to continue to have women underrepresented. There's such a huge, gap. I talked earlier about how can men make laws that have to do with women? What do you know about being a woman? That when you are making laws, so when we're talking about even making sanitary towel free in schools or in toilets, how can men make that law when they don't know anything about periods and stuff like that? How can men make laws about you shouldn't wear this, about rape and stuff like that? Not that men are not raped, but how will men not get it wrong if they're speaking for women when they know nothing about being a woman? So that those are the issues that women have to grapple with. It's not that women don't want to run. It's not that women don't want to also speak, but when they speak, sometimes we shut them down. So those things are super important things to note. Okay. Well, unfortunately, that's all the time I have. Thank you very much for being a part of the program and for participating on the show. It's been an engaging interview with my guests. If you didn't listen to it, you can actually go back on our Facebook page where we have archives, or you can go to our YouTube platform, our YouTube channel, where we have archives of some of our past shows, which you can then watch back. So go to our YouTube channel at Splash 105.5. Go to our Facebook at Splash FM 105.5 and watch back my interview with her. Like I told her, this fight is not a man versus woman fight. No. If it was, then Sarah Jubril would have the vote of all of the women, and she probably may have had a high chance of winning, because we have a lot of women out there. We do have, so if women do band it together, we can definitely get a lot more done. But it's about re-educating ourselves, normalizing seeing women whenever we're talking about political issues, normalizing seeing women, and not just make leadership a man thing. All right. Thank you so much for listening and for being a part of the program today. My name is Ronke Giwa Onafuwa. Do enjoy the rest of your day and God bless you.